What is up, everybody? I am hanging out with the folks at Sweetwater, and we are checking out the new Revv Dynamis D40. This is the newest amp in the Revv line. You may be familiar with the D20. You may be familiar with the D25. The D40 is part of the Pro series, but they're all part of the same family. So what is this thing? It's a 40 watt all tube amplifier. It comes loaded with 6L6s stock. But if you know how to bias, you can put pretty much any 8-pin tube you want in there. So EL34s, KT66s, anything you want. So it's crazy versatile in what you can do with it. It is a 2-channel amplifier. The clean channel is voiced to be just big and open, really, really dynamic, but it'll still take pedals extremely well. The second channel is a bit of a departure for Revv amps. It's more of a vintage style channel. We'll get into how it sounds, but think along the lines of maybe a Marshall JCM or maybe even a JTM. It's capable of a little bit more gain than that, but it's very dynamic, very kind of fat, rich drive channel. We'll get into how all that sounds in just a second. The controls are really straight ahead for both channels. They're the same. So you've got gain, treble, mid, bass. That's your typical tone stack. And then your channel master for either channel. And then you do have master volumes. I won't be demoing how to switch between these two masters, but you can see there's two there. It basically just allows you to turn the whole amp up or down without touching your tone stack. So if you want to punch through in the mix with the band and you don't want to mess with your tone stack, then you can just switch to the other master. This amp does come with reverb that sounds great. It is a digital reverb, but it's a Hall kind of meets a spring reverb. We'll get into how that sounds as well. All Revv amplifiers come with the Torpedo, 2 notes, Torpedo embedded DynIR software and hardware. So it is reactive load. You have stereo XLRs on the back. I won't be demoing it that way. I want you guys to hear this through the 2x12 cab. This is a new 2x12 cab from Revv. It's our first vertical 2x12 cabinet. It's loaded with Celestion Creamback 75s. You can get it with you know, whatever you want, but we loaded it specifically for this amp with the Creambacks. So yeah, let's get right into some sounds. I'll just kind of explain as I go. We'll start on the clean channel. So here's kind of the jumping off point. So that's a really sweet clean tone. Before I touch anything with the EQ, let's just get into what these switches do. There's a bright switch and a boost switch. Let's listen to the boost switch first. Basically what it's going to do is it's going to make the amp sound a little bit more pushed. So yeah, it's a little bit more spread out, a little bit more pushed. There's also a bright switch. It does exactly what you think it does, but not exactly what you think it does. It does make it brighter, so check it out. So it's certainly more chimey. But it's more to manipulate what is going on with the top end. So you can go 2 directions. You can turn the treble up, and it's going to be a more kind of punchy, kind of high mid top. But if you don't want that, and you want a softer top in the mids, and you want some more glass, and you can turn the treble down and add that bright switch, and now you've got a totally different top end characteristic that might be more desirable depending on, you know, what guitar you're using, all that kind of stuff. Now I can add mids all the way up. All the way off. It's a fatter mid circuit. I like it about right there. Bass is pretty big on this. Here's a bass off. Bass all the way up. So it can get pretty massive. And speaking of bass, you do have a global depth and presence. The depth on this amplifier is a little bit more subtle. It's almost more felt than heard, but I'm going to go ahead and roll that since we're in the low end. So it's definitely more subtle. You can feel it for sure. The presence, since we're in the global setting, presence off, presence all the way up. So between your treble, your bright switch, and this presence control, you've got tons of capability as far as how you want to dial the top end of this amplifier. And of course, the depth control coexists with your bass control. Now, the one thing I'll show you while I'm on the clean channel is how the reverb sounds. So it's a really sweet sounding reverb. You do have depth and level controls on the back of the amp. Right now, everything's right at noon. So if you wanted the verb a little longer, you could crank it up, and obviously you can turn the level up and down. Right now it's at about noon. So it's kind of a spring meets hall reverb sound. And I think for a digital, it really sounds great. So that is the clean channel. Let's bump over to the dirt channel. Channel 2. I'll shut the reverb off and let's have a listen to that. So right now you're hearing it with the boost switch on. I'm going to go ahead and shut that off and let you hear it without it. And then I'll turn it back on so you can get a perspective of what that's doing. So here's just the channel, no switches on. So it's very vintage, not a ton of gain there, very dynamic. So I'll kind of do the same thing without touching anything. I'm going to go ahead and turn on that boost switch and let you guys hear what that is doing. So that switch can be applied to either channel, programmably, foot switchable, MIDI, however you want to do it. In this case, it does make it sound a little more pushed, but it also adds some gain. You can hear that that's very apparent by adding it. I like it on all the time. Now, same thing with the bright switch. If you want to add more top end, we can hit the bright switch. Sounds great. Same idea. You can tweak the top end to whatever you would like. I'll go ahead and turn that bright switch off. I'm just going to roll the EQ for you really quick. We'll start with the mids. Now that mid control is different from the clean channel. It's got a little bit more bark to it, and we specifically wanted that just for punch and that kind of vintage mid growl. Let's do the bass. I'll go ahead and shut it all the way off. All the way up. So it's a pretty big low end. It's definitely spread out. And once again, you can between the bass and the depth control. You can dial that kind of stuff in. Of course, if you want to do reverb on that channel, that's programmable as well. And the channel is very responsive to guitar input. So just going back and forth between that neck position to humbucker. I don't feel like I have to reach over and change something. So the last thing I want to look at on this channel is that gain. Right now it's about 3/4 of the way up. This is not a high gain amp. I'll let you hear how it sounds when you roll the gain all the way up. So it is capable of quite a bit of saturation. If you want more than that, then the idea behind it was use your favorite boost pedal, use your favorite overdrive pedal, and you can push it into more saturation. This amp across the board is extremely pedal friendly, regardless of the clean channel or the dirty channel. And yeah, it's just a really big, responsive, spread out, vintage sounding amplifier. One thing I will mention is I did bring up the fact that we're using, all these amps have the 2 Notes Torpedo embedded DynIR software as well as hardware reactive load. If you're wondering what this is for your actual output level. On the back of the amp, there's 2 XLR outs, stereo. So if you want to run straight to front of house, or maybe your DAW, so you can record silent, there's a switch on the back that you hit. It turns on the reactive load that feels great, and you're off to the races, and this would be your level. It's also your headphone level if you want to play headphones. This switch here is a 6-position switch. It comes loaded with some really great sounding cabinets stock. You can obviously change that to whatever you want. You can use Revv cabs, you can use 2 Notes cabs, you can use your own third-party IRs, whatever you want to do. It's really simple. On the back of this amplifier, as I mentioned, you've got your 2 XLR outs, you've got all your speaker outs, so you've got your 2 4s, 2 8s, and a 16. You've got your USB out, so if you want to utilize the software with your computer, that's super easy. If I didn't mention, I think I did, but if I didn't, there's ports so that you can bias the amp, use any tubes you want, which is really cool, super easy. If you don't know how to bias, have your tech do it, but those are available on the back. You have a 10-watt switch. It definitely will get much quieter if you want to do that. That's on the back of the amplifier. That's a really nice feature. If you don't want to run direct or use phones and you don't want to, have people call the police on you, that's a really nice feature. If I missed anything on the back, you can check it out, but that pretty much covers what's back there. We know what's on the front of the amp. We know how it sounds. We know what's up with the cabinet. As always, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you've got any other questions, please reach out to your Sweetwater sales engineer.